Well, thank you all again so much for being here and participating in our second Peer to Family Forum. And as Elizabeth mentioned, my name's Adam Shoulder. Uh, just a brief introduction. I do a lot of work with NAMI West Los Angeles. I facilitate family support group. I am a lead presenter for Ending the Silence, which is the program that we offer in schools for mental health education, destigmatizing mental health. I also do training for Ending the Silence along with Elizabeth. And I also do some work with NAMI California, training high school students to establish NAMI on campus clubs. And I also am the executive director for Insight Enrichment Group, where we do a lot of mental health coaching, case management, and as well as our nonprofit, A Gap in the Forest, which offers a lot of free creative social recreational groups to the community as well, both virtual and in person. And really happy to be here tonight. Happy to see all of you here. And with our peer mentors or our peer panelists, Mara Gold, Garrett Shaw, Jeff Turner, and thank you, all three of you, for being here. And we have Brenda, who will be joining us hopefully right around 7 o'clock, and she'll jump in as our fourth peer panelist. And so really the purpose of tonight is really just for our peer panelists to share a little bit of their personal story and their journey with mental health. And then we really just want to open it up for questions, conversation, discussion. All of our peer panelists are just really awesome people and really wonderful to be willing to be here and to share their journey and their experience. And we'll be happy to answer questions that you may have. So before we jump into that, I do want to just go over just a couple group guidelines. So I'm going to just share my screen briefly. And really, these are just group guidelines that we like to follow just for everyone's comfort and safety. So for this group, we're going to plan on ending at 8 p.m. This evening. And of course, really everything here is just based out of mutual respect. So, when we do get into conversation, avoiding crosstalk interruptions, and want, anyone that has questions, I want to make sure we have time and for everyone to ask their questions and contribute in any way they would like. We do ask that even though this isn't a traditional support group, that we still, try to maintain confidentiality and keeping the things that we talk about in this meeting really within the confines of this meeting. And of course, empathizing with everyone's situation, because I want anyone who is participating, asking questions, to feel free to share a little bit about, if you're here, if you have a loved one with a mental health condition, if you're someone yourself with a mental health condition. I want everyone to feel very comfortable sharing, discussing this, and know that it can be kept confidential and that we're all here just to be supportive of one another. A couple specific Zoom related requests that I have is that I do ask that everyone keep their microphone muted, just really to avoid background noise and distractions. When it comes time for questions, of course, feel free. You can, raise your virtual hand, raise your hand, or just unmute yourself and feel free to jump in. I do ask that everyone keep your Zoom video on if at all possible. Again, this is just for everyone's comfort and feeling safe and comfortable in the group. I do understand if you're in your car or if you're eating dinner or something like that, maybe you can't have it on. If you're still at work, maybe you can't have it on. If you are able to have the camera on, that I would ask that that you do keep it on. And then when we do get into the question discussion part of our group tonight, uh, if you do have a question or something you'd like to contribute, maybe if you could just start by introducing yourself with your name, and if you are here and you do have a loved one with a mental health condition, maybe you can share just a little bit about your loved one, maybe just their name, age, relation, diagnosis. That's certainly not mandatory. You can just maybe introduce yourself if if that's all you're comfortable doing, that's okay as well. So these are just a few of the guidelines that we will follow here in our group. Um, okay, and I think with that, we will get started. And so I'd like to kick things off by introducing our first peer panelist, Mara Gold. Mara works with me at both Insight Enrichment Group as one of our coaches. She actually works up in the Bay Area, up in the San Francisco area, but has been working with our team for about 5 years. And she is also a member of the board of directors for our nonprofit, A Gap in the Forest, and has been doing really great work with clients, and really happy, Mara, that you are here as part of our peer panel today. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to you, Mara.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. Elizabeth, thank you for having me here. It's actually kind of funny. I was just thinking about it, and we're talking about family, which is such a huge part of my recovery, and still continues to be. And just ironically, I'm in my high school room that I grew up in. I am going out of town with my family tomorrow. And so my boundaries right now are these AirPods, because even though we have a very open relationship at this point, like honest and everything, I still need my boundaries with my family. So yeah, I was just thinking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in my high school room having this talk. But yeah, I think for me, a lot of it was that, I guess I'll start kind of from the beginning. I always had depression as a kid. I never thought I'd have thoughts like that. I just wasn't meant to live a super long life, not in any way of taking things like any plan or anything, but I just thought that things were kind of felt too hard. This was like a very young age having these sort of thoughts, but I think that I always met these marks with my family that kind of with education, that being a very big thing for them to get good grades and go to college and finish in 4 years. And I met those marks, but along the way, I was internally just suffering. And it was about my sophomore year of college. It took like a breakup with a boyfriend for just like the floodgates to kind of drop. And my roommates noticed behavior. I had some, I was really depressed. I had some self-harm tendencies, and I was seen for the first time by my roommates really struggling, and they were scared, and they called my parents. And I went to college in Colorado, and my parents, I grew up in the Bay Area. They've been divorced since I was 3, but we're both within 24 hours on the same flight together out to Colorado. And within 24 hours of that, I was in a hospital, psychiatric hospital. And it was I think, almost just as bizarre as the psychiatric hospital was seeing my parents side by side, like communicating like this. And I was really confused. And so I begged my parents after that hold, I begged my parents to let me stay in college and let me graduate. And they said, my mom stayed out there for a little longer, but they did allow me to continue school. And I think it was, I had to see a psychiatrist multiple times a week, a therapist 3 times a week. But, they had a lot of faith in me that even within this disoriented state, they allowed me to make that decision. And I don't think there was any right or wrong decision, but definitely, the Band-Aid was really building up. And it was it took things like making those marks in college and everything like that to kind of mask what was really going on with me, because that was so important. And so I think, so then after college, I started a career in politics. I actually worked for a congressman, and I developed a pretty bad habit of like all my depression and everything sort of coincided, which it does a lot of times, with addiction. And that's a huge part of my story. But I was able, once again, I was able to like get by and have everything seem okay because my career was okay. And like, you know, that resume was still doing all right. And my family knew I was majorly depressed, but had like no clue the level of what it was. And I know my mom had asked me many times about, would you like to go to this place, you know, for depression? And she's a therapist. And I always just pushed it away, like, no, you know, I'd never go to a place. And I was never like that depressed, is how I saw it. And but she happened to come in to my apartment one day, and I was at my, I guess I was at my end, because she brought it up this one time, and it had been years since she had brought it up. And I said, I just surrendered, and I said, yes, like I'll go. I mean, I weighed nothing. I hadn't eaten for a long time. I was a total mess. I had actually left my job to go find myself, which was the opposite of what happened. I guess in the long run, it is what happened. But and my mom, I remember my mom saying, well, I don't know if there's a bed available. And I was just like, she said, maybe a few weeks. And I said, I don't have a few weeks. And I went to a place in LA, and it was actually, I got put in the women's program, which was focused on like depression and anxiety, because I had kept still the substance abuse such a secret that my parents didn't even know I was going and that I would be needing that type of treatment. And when I got to treatment, they were like, oh, you need to be in our dual program. And it was just like, my relationship with my parents, that's when it became like all the lies that I had been holding back were just told. Because I would go into my therapist's office in treatment, and they would want me to, you know, as I'd open up, they'd say, this is something, you know, you should share with your family if you feel comfortable. And of course it was my decision, but I was kind of left like, after treatment, what do I even do? You know, they didn't know anything. So I ended up telling them, and it was really hard. I remember sitting in my therapist's office and just saying, I've been using, and also I am in debt. And just, it was so hard. I'd have to write down the words to just speak them to my parents on speakerphone and just like stick to that script. And so it was a lot for my parents. Like, I know it was, I mean, it was shocking. And so yeah, I just worn myself out. And that it was that moment of surrender that I still think back on. I don't know why it happened. I don't know what it was, but I guess I was just so tired. And yeah, so that was kind of like my big moment of surrender. And then the path starting of being honest with my family. I had to start relearning things. Like, I actually had a coach, and I remember my coach drove me down Wilshire Boulevard and just dropped off, you know, resumes to restaurants. And you know, it's kind of that idea of no jobs too small. You know, I had worked in politics and had this career, but like, I didn't know how to look people in the eyes like anymore. Like, I had to learn that. And I ironically got a job as a hostess that didn't have any reservation system. So I had to remember by people's faces. And so I was forced to look people in the eyes and just remember their names and like where I'd put them. And so there were a lot of steps like that that were really huge for me. And my bank account, I mean, a big part with my family was that I had lost their trust with finances. And even being in my late 20s, early 30s, my bank account at that point, they had the password to, which I hated. I tried everything. I'd take out cash so they didn't know, not that I was even doing anything, but, you know, just to not have them know, like some idea of not having them know, even if it was for like food or something, is just a wild mentality of still wanting to hold on to like a secret or independence at a time when I really needed that support. But it was very strange to have all my transactions being looked at. And it took a really long time for me to get that password reset, like for me to get that back, to my bank account, to everything. And so, yeah, I think one of the biggest parts with family is I really had broken a lot of trust. I broke everything, and I didn't have relationships with anyone anymore. And you know, getting coaching allowed them to be able to step out of this like managerial role and kind of like have this adult to adult relationship. And that was like everything to me, especially after things had kind of collapsed, to be able to start fresh in a different way, like in different roles than before, because the old roles were not working. And it's pretty amazing how far we've all come. I remember when I first got back from my stay in residential, and I was angry because everything at home was still the same. And I felt like I've been working so hard on myself. What have they been doing? You know, and I felt just like angry about that. But a lot through like just being honest and seriously talking to people, like I believe like telling on myself has been the most helpful thing, like even just turning to like a friend or like someone in meetings and just saying like, I'm feeling like this, you know, I want to do this. And it's like, it kind of dies down the like strong desire to act on any urges or, you know, things like that. It's like, I'm not keeping this big secret that's like separating me from other people. And so with my family, that's been one of the biggest things, is just kind of opening up before it gets to that breaking point and being able to like see each other for who we are, and that there's not like a perfect way to do things. And not everyone's going to have that same like moment of surrender or whatever. Everything's individualized, and relationships are so complicated, especially with family. And it's hard to break trends, like things that we've done my whole life. And all of a sudden it was like we were kind of brand new people to each other. But there's been a lot of willingness. I mean, it definitely hasn't been all peaceful. And it's still like something I have to actively work on. But I guess the last part that I'll kind of wrap up is in December, my mom had a massive stroke, and she can't move the left side of her body, is still cognitively there. And she's single, and I'm her only daughter. And all of a sudden, this role reversal, I mean, within learning about it, it was like I became more the parental role, where I'm, you know, doing her bills. And I've just told her exactly what she told me when she asked me to go to, if I would go to treatment. I just said, I'll take care of everything here. Like, you just work on getting better. And it's brought us so much closer. And it's things like that where it's been hard times, but the ability to like form new relationships with one another is what keeps us honest. And that's something we're always working on. So it's my story.
Well, thank you so much, Mara, for sharing your story. And, Mara, how long have you been sober now?
In June, July, it was 6 years. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Great stuff. And, you know, Mara has done such an amazing job being able to give back and help others as well in her role now as a peer mentor and as a coach, and using, you know, her experience to really be helpful to others. So thank you, Mara, for all the great work you do, and thank you for sharing your story and being a part of our meeting here tonight.
Of course, thank you.
Absolutely. And now I would like to hand it over to Garrett Shaw, who works with NAMI WLA, is a peer facilitator, I think, in peer groups and peer classes. And Garrett, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you do a lot of great work with NAMI.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shoulder. Thank you very much, Elizabeth Stevens, for having me tonight. I'm really excited to be here. I always love being able to be of service and help the NAMI community. NAMI has been huge to me. I call it my NAMI, my NAMI family. My mom and I both are blessed to have NAMI in our life. My mom is a crisis counselor, outreach queen. That's what I call her, outreach queen and a resource navigator for NAMI. And I'm going to read a little bit about myself, about my journey, and I'm so blessed to be here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mara, for starting us off. I'll just start reading. Hello, my name is Garrett Shaw, and I'm honored to speak to everybody tonight about my experience and journey with my mental health. The diagnosis I have is schizoaffective bipolar type. It was not easy to get where I am today. There is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that sums it up. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. I had a very little structure in my life, and I was just hanging on most days, hoping and praying that time would pass and that God would help me. I remember making a deal with God that if he helped me get well again, I would donate some of my time to help others with a mental health condition. And today, I am doing exactly that. I currently work in treatment center in Santa Monica, helping individuals with addiction and mental illness, and I love my job. The first time I remember having signs of mental illness was about 23 years ago when I was around 20 years old. I have been in many different hospitals, and my life was very sad and depressed and scary. I did not know what to do with my time and how to end my delusions. The mental health condition I have is called schizoaffective bipolar type, and I am blessed to have it. I am helping people via support groups, individual therapy, group therapy, and helping them connect to themselves and one another so they don't feel so isolated and lost. The National Alliance of Mental Illness is now like a family to me. I call the people at NAMI my anomaly. I'm very blessed to know the entire staff at NAMI, Westside LA. I remember my mom telling me over and over, you must learn about your disease, and the Wednesday evening lectures at NAMI helped me do just that. Also, while connected to NAMI Westside LA, I have walked downtown and helped raise money to fighting ending stigma twice. While connected to NAMI West LA, I have been blessed to transform from support group member to support group co-facilitator. NAMI West LA has given me back my self-esteem by helping me to be of service to others and take the focus off of my life. I am so blessed to the NAMI West LA staff for believing in me and giving me this opportunity. I think it is written, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. This is a quote from the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, founder of Taoism, and I also think it's a concept referred by Maimonides, and it may be in the Bible. My mom, who has seen me at my worst, is now a support group leader for parents that need support with their children and loved ones who have a mental health condition. My mom now, thanks to NAMI WLA, has insight into my disease and also has tools to help me. Our relationship is unbelievable. My mom now, thanks to NAMI WLA, has insight into my disease and also has the tools to help me. Mom is also one of the teachers of the NAMI WLA family class, which is incredible, by the way. My illness was debilitating and frightening. Due to the medication for my schizoaffective bipolar type, I developed OCD. I was washing my hands so many times that my knuckles were bleeding. I was so scared of people with the mental illness that I would have my mom wait for me in my doctor's appointment while I barricaded myself in my car. One time, Mom accompanied me to a NAMI WLA peer-to-peer class, and I had to leave the room since I felt so dysregulated. Sometimes when I would go grocery shopping with my mom, I would get so nervous, I would have to quickly race to the car and barricade myself in the car out of fear. My delusions were paralyzing and frightening. I think it is a Hindu proverb that says something like, "There are many paths up the mountain, and there is no one way to recover," and I believe this to be true. I do my best these days to use my mind and listen to my heart. I am now trained by SHARE, a wonderful organization in Culver City, as an advanced peer specialist certification. I am also now learning how to help as a peer, and I am also on my way to doing my 3,000 hours to become a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have given my mom so many opportunities to cast me aside, but she has never ever given up on me. Now my relationship with my mom is fantastic. We truly enjoy our time together, we learn from one another, trust one another, and give back to one another more than ever in the history of our relationship. Yes, it was difficult seeing my life fall apart, but now it is blossoming in ways I never could have imagined. It is a miracle and an honor that I'm here to read this speech to all of you tonight. Yes, I was paranoid. Yes, I could not go grocery shopping on my own. Yes, I was extremely fragile, but now I am insightful, sensitive, kind, thoughtful, and I have accomplishments, and I'm dedicated to a path of service and helping other people. Thank you very much for the honor to speak to all of you today. Just for everybody to know, I have been hospitalized a total of about 26 times. The last time I was hospitalized was for about 62 days. Recovery is possible. It may take you about 10 plus years like it did in my case, but it was all worth it. And if you're patient with yourself and do the work, good things can come. The good news is I have not been in the hospital for about 15 years. For 2 years, I joined Overeaters Anonymous, which is this 12-step program, and I learned so much about life. I highly recommend 12 Steps. I love these meetings, I love the fellowship, and you learn so much about life. I've been active with NAMI for well over 5 years. I feel so blessed to have the life I have today. Words cannot describe it. My life is now taking shape, and I am transforming all my past pain and suffering to become a service to people who are still desperate and still suffer from severe mental illness. I was facilitating a NAMI peer-to-peer group of about 15 to 22 people along with Elizabeth Stevens. She is incredible. I graduated from the intensive outpatient program at the Life Adjustment Team, and I completed a graduate degree in clinical psychology at Antioch University in Culver City, California. Yes, it took me 3 years to complete the degree, but I'm glad to say I have. I am also serving on an advisory board at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center for a study about depression and heart disease. My life has gone from intense fear and rumination and pain and delusions and suffering to joy, accomplishment, and pride. Yes, I still struggle, but now I have tools and coping mechanisms. While at my last hospitalization about 15 years ago, the doctors took my mom aside and said to her, "Your son has had so many psychotic breaks, he might not ever recover." I had so many psychotic breaks that it was uncertain if I could get my sanity back. I am here to tell you recovery is possible. Thank you to the Life Adjustment Team, Dr. Jamie Kay, Sharon Dunez, Elizabeth Stevens, Aaron Rafferty, everybody at NAMI West LA. Thank you for believing in me, and thank you very much for listening to my story, and I wish everybody the best.
Well, thank you, Garrett. Thank you so much for being a part of our panel and for sharing your story with us. And it takes a great amount of courage for all of our peer panelists to really share the background, the history, everything that you've been through. And you've been through a lot, Garrett, and amazing work that you're doing now and helping others. So really appreciate your story and for being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. And now I would like to introduce Jeff Turner. Jeff has just recently begun working with A Gap in the Forest. He is about to launch a new group that we will be offering, a songwriting and recording workshop, and is as well as doing some peer mentoring. And really happy, Jeff, that you could be here tonight and be a part of our peer panel. And I will hand it off to you now.
Thank you, Adam, for the introduction, and thanks for Elizabeth for having me. Pretty much just a general background about where I grew up and what I do and everything. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I went to college there for about 2 years. Wasn't for me. Left that, graduated from vet tech school in the same city in 2016, and then that wasn't for me. Then I decided to move to LA for music, since I make music in 2018, and I've been here since for almost 5 years. So around 2009, I had thyroid failure, and I was sent to the hospital for that. And also around that same time, I was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder and put on medication. That was regulated, I would say, probably after 2011 or 2012, I felt pretty stable mental health wise. Then in 2014, I thought I would try to go off of medication with medical supervision. And a few months after that, 3 or 4 months, I relapsed. It's hard to really remember the experience at the time, but from my memory, I started to have delusions and other stuff like that. It just wasn't really feeling myself. And then that was also kind of paired with a manic episode. And then also near the end of 2020, in the beginning of 2021, I decided to go off of medication again on my own, and similar situation with just a manic episode 3 or 4 months after that, with delusional thinking about spiritually specific people, that whole idea. My family throughout all of this, they've been excellent with support, with my parents and just everyone in general in my family, with understanding, educating on the topic of mental health and all of that. So I think that's a testimony that they have been there throughout the whole thing, and I don't know what I would have done without them. So pretty much that was good. And in 2021, I was put in the hospital, like I said, when I went off of the medication for about a week in February 2021, and I was put in a psychiatric hospital for about a week. And it took, honestly, probably until August or September where I felt emotionally stable without mood swings from depression to overthinking and anxiety. And it still happens. I mean, from like this year alone, there's been times where it has done that, and I feel like I've been able to bounce back from that and get back on track with help from my therapist and friends and people that I talk to. And like I said, it took about 9 months until I felt stable mentally again. And it took a while to kind of find the right therapist, 3 tries, and I luckily have found someone in the music industry um, who has helped me with just coaching and also just with the emotional support aspect of therapy as well. Um, and yeah, talking to friends and people that help me emotionally, advice wise. Um, but yeah, so where things are at now in life and mental health, I can kind of give my perspective on that. So, like I said, things are emotionally pretty good for the most part. There are days I kind of just get depressed or get anxious or overthink, but I think that's just part of having bipolar, even while being on medication. I feel like since the first time when I was diagnosed for me, I felt like I was more stabilized on it and I had less mood swings, but now I think I'm more conscious of when they come and I have the tools now to be proactive about it. So yeah, I mean, it only happens once a month. So it's not too regular, which is good. And meditation and prayer, I feel like, and affirmations, I feel like have been another good tool to me to lean on faith and trusting and having hope. So what's next for me? So pretty much right now, I am continuing to progress with my music career and build income from it. I'm working a part-time job to help support me along with savings, and I'm able to be independent on my own, take care of myself, cook, clean, all of that, and then continuing to receive the support from my therapist, friends, and other close people as well, and finding new close friends in a community through my church and other activities, places, and going through that whole journey. Um, but yeah, like I said, it did take probably a good, I mean, my journey's been for 10 years of having bipolar. So I feel like it has been a journey just through self-discovery of like learning what kind of person I am and the thoughts I have and all of that, how to manage bipolar. I think before I definitely wasn't as accepting of having the condition, and it took two relapses, like I mentioned, to kind of decide this is something long term and I'm going to have to just manage it. So I think eventually, through the help of my therapist and talking to friends, my parents, people at my music school staff wise, I think it's been um a journey to accepting that, and I think I'm finally okay with that. And yeah, pretty much that is my story, and thanks for listening.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. And it was interesting. I have actually a few questions. I'm going to wait until we kind of open up the room for some questions. But it's interesting because you said you've been through, I think you said 3 therapists, and then found one that is also, in the music industry. And so I think that really important point that sometimes, it's so important to find the right person, the right support system, where you can really feel like you can benefit, and there's a connection there. And that's I think a big part of it. So appreciate you mentioning that. And so, yeah, again, thank you, Jeff, and thank you for sharing
Mhm.
your story. And Brenda, I see that you got here perfect timing. So thank you, Brenda. Just briefly, by way of a brief introduction, and then I'll let you introduce yourself. But Brenda and I have worked together. We've given a number of presentations, Ending the Silence presentations for junior high school students. I think we've given some for teachers and parents as well. Always a pleasure presenting with you, and I know you do a lot of other great things. So I want you to introduce yourself and share your story.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. So a little bit about me. I'm gonna just start off with my story, and then I'll mention all the things that I do and my accolades and everything that is now. but my whole life, I've been a talker. All right. I was born for this. I was made for this. My entire life, I'd always been the kid that would talk in class way too much, always in report cards. She can't stop talking. We tell her to stop. We move her seats, and she still gets up and talks to her friends all the time. I was also the kid who would burst into song and dance in the middle of class if my teacher was doing something boring on the board, like a math problem or whatever I found very boring at the time. I was class clown. My peers loved me. Like, they loved when I would start singing and dancing just out of nowhere. Teachers, not so much. But even though in report cards, there would be comments like, she's disruptive, she can't sit still, she's always fidgeting, she talks too much, they would always say, but Brenda has the ability to hyper focus. So whenever Brenda is passionate about something, we can't pry her off of it. And Brenda's able to master subjects and anything that she's interested in quicker than all the other students. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, I think I know what her diagnosis is. But at the time, even though, I mean, I could see the signs, nobody did back then. And all of these fun characteristics of mine began to manifest themselves as anxiety and depression when I was a teen. And I grew up in a household where I couldn't talk to my parents about what I was going through, because anytime I tried, they would tell me things like, oh, just get over it. There's a roof over your head. You know, we provide you with clothes and you eat. We bring there's food on the table. What are you complaining about? And so that's when I knew that I needed to seek out mentors and people and trusted adults around me that were going to validate how I was feeling inside. And those people became my teachers, my counselors, and my friends' parents. They helped me get through school. They helped give me that positive reinforcement that I needed. But when I entered college after high school, I began to experience debilitating panic attacks. And I didn't know what was going on, but I just knew that every time they'd hit, I thought I was going to die. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in at times. I was shaking, I was sweaty, but then, like, just as quick as it hit me, it was gone. And I was terrified as to what this was. And then that's when I sought out my first therapist, and she introduced me to mindfulness and meditation, which completely changed my life. Like Jeff was saying, meditation, huge for me. It helped reduce it. It helped take away my anxiety. It helped me overcome it. But not just mindfulness and meditation. There's a gamut of other tools that I use. And I now teach other people and my clients and kids when I go to schools and speak. I now teach them these tools that have helped me completely change my life for the best. But even though when I saw my first therapist, she introduced me to mindfulness and meditation, it wasn't until my second therapist that I would get the diagnoses. She asked me if I had ever been diagnosed with ADHD. Now, the reason why she asked me that is because I was coming home at that time in my life. I was 25 years old. I was coming home and smashing mugs against my wall. And that's never been my temperament. You know, I don't know if any of you could feel it or sense it, but I'm like really bubbly, energetic. And all of a sudden I was coming home and just smashing mugs. So my then boyfriend, who we lived together, said, this isn't you. We need to have you see a therapist and see what's going on. So when I saw the second therapist, she told me that I had every symptom and characteristic of ADHD, and that when ADHD goes undiagnosed for long periods of time, it can manifest itself as anxiety, depression, and rage. And I was like, what? And she's like, so it sounds like you have undiagnosed ADHD, and let's get you tested. And so I did. I got tested. My primary care physician and her both were in communication, and I came back with ADHD. And to be honest with you, I was incredibly relieved because I could finally put a name to what I was experiencing my entire life. I would start a million projects, but not be able to finish any of them because I would get so overwhelmed in the middle of it. I would also have, oh, sorry, I just got distracted. I would also have bouts of, oh, sorry. The chat just like completely threw me off right now. Give me one sec. Okay, so yeah, so with ADHD, it would explain why it was really hard for me to also regulate my emotions and regulate my mood and regulate my attention. That was huge. I didn't know how to pry myself off of hyper focus because that happened a lot when I would be singing or playing music or in my creative pursuits. I just didn't know how to turn that switch off, but it was painful to like throw out the trash. My executive functioning was not there. And I didn't understand why until I learned about ADHD. And ADHD is an executive functioning disorder. It's really difficult for us to regulate our attention if we are not medicated and or practicing like mindfulness tools, meditation, breath work, self-compassion, positive affirmations. Like we truly need that. And so that's what I do now. Those are all the tools that helped me tremendously. Medicine completely changed my life for the best. And what's interesting is that my family, you know, they look at me and they actually think I'm crazy. And they use that word. And I know that being a mental health activist, it's like we can't use that word. You know, there's no one's crazy, but they look at me as crazy because I talk about mental health and I was able to find my diagnoses and do something about it. And so now what I do is I am a motivational speaker. I'm a mindfulness coach. I'm also a musical comedian. I'm very involved in the comedy community. And last year I debuted my comedy special that I wrote, composed, directed, produced, and starred in, my own comedy musical one-woman show, all about mental health and my journey. I also teamed up with the George Lopez Foundation, so I'm involved with them, and I was able to attend their celebrity golf tournaments and be one of the guests of honors. I also have my own company where schools hire me through my company, and I go and teach their kids and their students about all the practical tools that helped me, which happened today. Today I was at a school earlier, and then I went to an event, and then now I'm here. But earlier today, I spoke to 250 teenagers at a high school, and I gave them a mindfulness workshop, and I went through gratitude, positive affirmations, self-compassion, solfeggio frequencies, imposter syndrome, Q&A, and like the whole works, you know, and I'm incredibly happy. I'm in the arts. I'm literally like, I built my dream life. I'm living it, and it's only getting better, but it's because I decided to be open about my mental health and learn about my mental health and discover the tools that were going to help me. And NAMI has been absolutely incredible on this journey. Everyone here, like Elizabeth, Adam, they have been just incredible on this journey, and NAMI has really changed my life for the best. So that's my story. Thanks for hearing me ramble.
Awesome. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey. And to all of our peer panelists, and you know, the common thread here is that how much you have all given back as well to help others, and using your personal experience to be of service and to be helpful to others, which is the way this really works, you know, is being able to give back and use your experience and your, like I said, your journey to be supportive of others and to give others hope and to share what you've learned and what helps you and really sharing that with others is so crucial. So again, to all of our peer panelists, Mara, Garrett, Jeff, Brenda, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here and sharing and just for your honesty and vulnerability and the courage that it takes to talk about these kinds of things. And with that, I really would love to open it up to everyone and anyone here. Any questions? If you have some just general questions for any of our peer panelists, if you have specific questions for any one of our peer panelists specifically, feel free to just jump in, raise your hand, or just jump in and ask away. And again, just as a reminder, if you have a question, maybe just start by introducing yourself just with your name. And if you're comfortable doing so, if you are here with and you have a loved one that is living with a mental health condition, if you are comfortable sharing maybe their diagnosis or their age, their relation to you, but certainly not required, but at least just introduce yourself and open for questions. Yes, Tiffany, go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany. I live in Long Beach. My son is 29 years old and his diagnosis is schizoaffective disorder. He was diagnosed about 8 years ago. But I just want to say to all the panelists, first of all, thank you so much. And I am blown away by your recovery. My son doesn't speak. He created his own language. He is an artist as well. He does music. He is on his medications, but I cannot even imagine him doing therapy. I can't imagine him wanting to work with peers. He's not capable. He attempted to take his life last year after going off of all his meds, again, cold turkey. He's living with me and I am sticking by his side like your mom, Garrett. And even though it's very hard, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say that and just say how much I admire you guys.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. And I know it's hard because everyone has their own journey, and I know our peer panelists have been through so much, and I hope that if nothing else, there's a takeaway of that there is some hope that even when things seem maybe at their darkest, or that it seems like there's not that light at the end of the tunnel, that I mean, Garrett, you said it yourself. How many times, Garrett, you said you were hospitalized 26 times, the last time being for 2 months. And I'm sure at the time that seemed pretty bleak, in terms of where things could go from there. So that's why one of the things we always say at NAMI, we talk about in our support groups, is you got to have hope, and I know that it's not always easy to feel hopeful, but I hope that in some way our speakers tonight can remind us how important that is, because I think things have seemed pretty dark for all of them at times. But really appreciate it. Mara, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I just first of all want to thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing that. I mean, it sounds like excruciating what you're going through. But I don't think you could be doing a better job. Like, you're showing unconditional love. And even if someone's not able to like verbalize their appreciation for that, like, love is felt, like, and also I was not open to getting help. I mean, it's in hindsight, like, it's easy to say, like, then I did this and then I did that, but like, so much of my story was pushing that away. And so you're definitely not alone with that.
Thank you so much, Mara.
Thank you, Mara, and good point. Yeah, because I think sometimes, right, when we're telling our stories, right, it's, well, then this happened, and then I got to treatment, and it's not sometimes the smooth road that it sounds when we're kind of encapsulating a lifetime in 5 minutes here. So very good point. Thank you, Mara, for your comments there. Have a question here from Sarah, and this is out to all of you. How have relationships evolved with your family since your diagnosis? So I'll put that out to any and all of our panelists.
Sure. Thank you for asking that, Sarah. I'll go first. With my family, I actually have very strong boundaries with my family. Also because of just who they are and like what like very unhealthy behaviors that and ideologies that are exhibited by them. I needed to have a no contact boundary with my parents, and it wasn't solely because of this and my diagnoses, but it was because of other very unhealthy behaviors on their part. But the diagnoses definitely kind of was like, oh, well, she's the crazy one. Well, she's crazy. You know, things like that. I have a great relationship with my cousins, but as far as my parents go, no support, no support from like aunts or uncles either. You know, I've truly had to do this on my own with, of course, with like my therapist's help and NAMI. I can't thank them enough. They've been incredible. And my friends are my family. I've cultivated a beautiful universe of incredibly supportive friends and people who truly love me for me. So that's who my family is.
My sorry, was someone?
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you for
Oh.
sharing.
Hi, Sarah. So my diagnosis, it was kind of interesting because I think it was more of a relief to my family when I had a diagnosis because, well, first, my parents felt like then it could be fixed. That was like the initial, like, kind of response to it, like, oh, there's this, let's problem solve. And I think that's very, like, human and loving, and you know, that's what we want to do, right? If someone's suffering, to be able to try to fix it. And so I think it was a little confusing to figure out, like, okay, here's this thing and it's true, I identified with it, and then to understand that although there's one word that, you know, fits it, that there's not any like road that just gets to doing that, you know, that it's lifelong. And I've been, you know, it's taken a lot of years, but I'll see my dad reading something or send an article about something, even if it's like totally not what I'm going through or whatever. It's like he's trying to learn. And I mean, for me, it was a little rocky at first because of that desire to fix it when there was a label. But I think it's become like now there's like more research on their behalf of like that now they know what to research more. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, I would say in the beginning, my parents definitely were more controlling in problem solving with what my diagnosis was and with bipolar, and kind of wanted me to get back on track, which is legit. And I think that definitely helped in the beginning of my recovery. But when I decided to go off of medication for the second time, I feel like it really took myself to understand the best tools to recovery, and they more so backed off, and they only really give advice when I need it and provide support because they want me to be independent, more independent at my age and what I'm doing in life. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Garrett, anything you would like to add to that discussion?
I just feel very blessed to be here tonight. Very grateful to NAMI, my NAMI family, and just thank you to the speakers, Jeff and Mara. And if anybody has any questions for me specifically, I'd love to give some input or answer any questions.
Yeah, well, we have another question here in the chat box that sort of builds on this last question a little bit. So, and this is for any of our panelists, what it was like for you when your parents or family sort of found out or noticed what you were going through. It looks like also, Mara, you mentioned that you tried to keep it hidden so your family wouldn't know. So for you, Mara, and for any of our panelists, really what it was like for you when they actually found out what was really going on.
I mean, yeah, mine was so hidden. And it was even hidden when I accepted treatment, like what I said, you know, it was like, it was shocking for sure. And even though I was being honest, I think I expected like almost like a congratulations about that, but that's not, I mean, you know, they're human and they felt taken advantage of. I mean, I had spent a ton of money that was given to me as a 30th birthday present to like invest in a house sometime. I owe it all. And so hearing that, it was like, I know, I mean, they were silent on the other end of the phone. They were in the Bay Area and I was in LA. And it was like, the silence was so hard. And yeah, I don't miss that time period at all. I still don't know if I could redo that. Like if something, I couldn't react that or like imagine being in that situation again, because it was so painful. And it was just opening a huge wound and one that they didn't even know was there. So it was just the beginning. There was no like, okay, I said this, like, good job. It was like, oh my God, now we have to like, now you've lost our trust, you know, from being honest. And that was really difficult. So.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you. And that really good point. It's like, you know, when it sort of was finally out there, I know you said earlier in one way it was a relief because it was out there, but interesting because then also it was like, okay, now the trust is gone and it's just, you've been in this place for a long time. And I think it sounds like as soon as that was sort of out on the table, it was almost then the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We have a couple hands up here. So Allie, good to see you. It's been a while. Oh, you are on mute still.
I was trying to keep it quiet from the background noise here. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for their transparency and everybody's eloquence in sharing your stories. And Adam, I wanted to thank you for pointing out that, you know, when we go through our stories, especially if they're stories of you know, hope and recovery, and you just sort of run through it, it sounds like to people who are listening, oh, that was easy. And there's so much, there's so many hills and valleys and dark places there, but you couldn't possibly give a presentation like that. And yeah, you just couldn't possibly give a presentation like that. So it's not simple, but I really appreciate the vulnerability of each and every panelist here. I always think of the journey of mental health challenges as two journeys, right? So the journey of the individual who's affected with mental health condition, the person who's living the experience, and then the family, as we've heard, that we're not necessarily on the same page or in the same time frame. And I keep hearing about NAMI. So I just wondered if, besides being supportive, the family members who were supportive, did any of the family members attend NAMI family to family or family support groups? Did any of them get involved in NAMI, or is it sort of your thing that they respect, but it wasn't something that they embraced?
Good question.
It's a great question. Yeah, Garrett, I see your hands up.
Yes, Allie, I am lucky enough to say that my mom took the family to family class and learned about the brain and learned about the diseases and bonded with the other family members in the family to family class. My mom also is a resource navigator and a crisis counselor. So when people call NAMI Westside LA, my mom checks that voicemail recording, and my mom actually calls them back to listen to them and help give them some support and guidance because of everything she learned when she went through my whole mental illness situation with me and our family. So my mom has embraced NAMI wholeheartedly. She is an active participant in my healing, in my recovery, and every other week, my mom and I go and we table for NAMI Westside at the Virginia Street Park in Santa Monica, and it's a great place where my mom and I team up and kind of sell NAMI and promote NAMI to the people that are at the farmers market. So I'm happy to say my mom has participated in my recovery, dove in wholeheartedly, and has been a main reason why I'm able to be where I'm at today and recover.
Great, thank you, Garrett. That's great to hear. Absolutely. I know you both are, very much involved with NAMI.
Thank you.
I've got a couple other hands up here. Wilson, go right ahead.
Hi everyone. I guess I just have a question for the panel and just anybody listening. And I've posed this question before, and I'm just kind of curious what people's experiences. But my sister was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder over 20 years ago, and if anything, she's just always been stable. She's never had anosognosia. She's always been open to treatment. She's always had steady therapy and things like that, and always been on medication, except for a few times here and there. But so I feel like everything on that, I mean, I'm not saying she's probably had the best, therapy in the world, all the time. So, I'm sure that could have been improved, but if I can say what's different then and now, she's always kind of stayed the same, if not sometimes got even worse, but she's kind of always stayed the same. And I came to this realization the other day while I was taking the family to family class that she's never not stopped. Once she started hearing voices, she never stopped hearing voices. And so there was never a time where she kind of stopped hearing voices and, had a realization, hey, the medication is working. It's just more like this is now her new normal for at least for the past 20 years. So I guess my question is, just sometimes I just don't relate sometimes with a lot of what people are saying where, my loved one was super against therapy or blah, 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 all this stuff. Like my sister was, but it just seems like the therapy she's gotten so far. My question is, does anybody have any experience with people who have a mental health condition, especially schizoaffective disorder, where they eventually stop hearing voices and they can kind of like be, where she doesn't constantly need to like be in the system, I guess, and what were some of those things that, like, what was it? Was it the right therapist? Was it the right, that's my question, is like, what is it that from everyone's experience, what was the thing or things that helped them get control over their diagnosis?
Great question, Wilson. And Garrett, maybe I will hand this off to you because you mentioned that is in fact your diagnosis was schizoaffective or bipolar with schizoaffective. So the question is, was there a turning point where some of the symptoms really subsided or went away, or is it something that you still experience and are just managing more effectively. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your personal experience with the symptoms that you experienced and what made a difference for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wilson, and thank you, Mr. Shoulder. I used to think a lot of negative thoughts. I used to have a lot of delusions. I used to think that there was a gun pointed at my front door. I was scared to leave my house. I was scared, paranoid to be in my house. I was scared to be in a public environment and go marketing, and I thought everybody was there protecting me, and I was getting telepathic communication. What was a major turning point was going to the psychosis clinic at UCLA and seeing Dr. Martyr, who specializes in clozapine, which is the medication I'm on. So the first foundation was going to a really well-respected doctor that specializes in schizoaffective bipolar type. The second thing that really, really helped me was to stop dwelling and thinking about my condition and find something I love to do. So I love helping other people, and I love growing, and I love learning. So going back to grad school was amazing. And then going to grad school and doing my internships was amazing. And now that I'm working and I went from being a patient to a provider, doing support groups and individual therapy and clinical notes, I have the best time going to work because it takes the focus off of me. It takes the focus off of my healing, takes the focus off maybe some of the sadness and the losses I've gone through, and I get to focus on other people, and it warms my heart, brings me satisfaction and joy, and I love going to work. So I love what I'm doing, and I love helping people, and that gives me a lot of peace of mind.
Garrett, I have a follow-up to that. So, you know, if for you, one of the things that was really a turning point for you was seeing this doctor and getting on a particular medication that fortunately was helpful for you. Prior to that, like, what was it? I guess my question is, what was the impetus or the decision to actually even go see that doctor? If you were experiencing paranoia, if you were experiencing some of the thoughts that you were having, I know for a lot of people, then, you know, they don't want to see a doctor. They don't want to take meds. So what was it for you that sort of got you to see this doctor? And
to be honest, it wasn't me. I was going to a doctor at a mental health community. I was going to a community mental health clinic, and the doctor that I was seeing at that time, let me just say this, it was my mom. My mom said, I want to take you to UCLA. I heard they're the best of the best doctors. I want you to get better. And I know, I just feel that you should see this other doctor and give it a try. I was reluctant. I had trauma from seeing past doctors that put me on the wrong medicine or took me off too fast or whatever it was. I had trauma from seeing past doctors. And my mom said, I want to take you to this new psychosis clinic. And it's supposed to be the best. And I listened to her, and I'm glad I did.
gotcha. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you. Appreciate it. And appreciate your mom for helping you there. Absolutely. We've got a few other hands up here, so I want to make sure we have time for everyone. So, Diane, please go right ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name's Diane. My loved one is on this Zoom, but she's turned her video off because it's recording. And she's my daughter, 26 years old, and her diagnosis is also schizoaffective bipolar type. And I just really wanted to talk. I mean, she's doing so well now. Adam knows she lives at Launchpad, and she just got her certification to be a drug and alcohol rehab counselor. She's going to do the program to be a mental health counselor. and doing incredibly well. I think, for her, every flare up of the disorder was triggered by substance use. And I think that really made the difference. And when you were asking about, hearing voices and all the rest of it, I mean, the only time that ever happened was when she was in the throes of a hospitalization and episode and all of that. But I just wanted to talk about the fact that, I really am committed to doing something about the stigma. My husband and I, our whole family, everybody super supportive of her. We never, like what Mara was talking about, I mean, it wasn't even a question that we wouldn't accept that this was happening and help her and do whatever we needed to do. But there is a definite stigma, when they say, like, what do they say? Mental health conditions are not the casserole illnesses, that someone has cancer and, neighbors bring over food, but you can't tell anyone about, a mental health situation. And even for me, very few friends of ours know. Only one person of about 50 people I work with is aware. It's just, that's the way it is. And I think it's really important. But I did want to say also that Haley happened, my daughter, well, there she is, Haley, so you can say hi to everyone. She was home and a friend of mine called, whose daughter was having a breakdown and had been hospitalized. And my friend is like, I don't know what to do. And I know you've been through this. She was one that I had confided in. And she said, I don't even know what to do. And I remember the beginning and being overwhelmed and not knowing anything about anything. Now I feel like I'm somewhat well-versed in, I've done a lot of studying on mental health, and, we did family to family right away. And in fact, my husband and I Friday are doing a training session to answer phones for the Warm Line, NAMI San Fernando Valley. And, but my friend was like, she doesn't have a psychiatrist. I think they sent her home too soon and all of this. And my daughter got on the phone with her, and my friend the next day texted me this beautiful message about, oh my God, she was wonderful. She was so helpful. Thank you so much. I feel so much better. And, we got resources, for her and whatever. So I think things are better. But, anyway, I think, mine was ours is a positive story. And I just think, that we've got to all work to find a way to rid the world of the stigma.
Absolutely. That's there's still so much stigma and misunderstanding out there, and that's a lot of what I know that NAMI's great with. I love the Ending the Silence presentations that I do with Brenda, because that's a big part of it as well. And I hope that Haley may consider being on our next peer panel the next time we do this.
Well, I hope so, and I will join. You can see
Awesome. We have time for just a couple quick more questions, and Mark and Maria, I know your hand is up, and so I'd love for you to have an opportunity here.
Thank you. My name is Mark. We're regarding our son Jacob. He's 30 years old. We don't have a diagnosis. I think this is kind of on top of the question you were asking before, Adam. We feel very frozen because if we don't know when to try to help because we get rejected. It seems from this panel and the last panel how important family was, and how influential in certain cases, many, at least for most, that the family was the one to kind of help bridge over. But we don't see the connection. We still see that it's coming from you guys as individuals that finally had some enlightenment for yourself. I think the universal question that we usually have as family members is, when do we jump in? When do we back off? I mean, what do we do? So for me, it's almost the waiting game of waiting for him to hit that place that you guys have hit, for the self-realization to want to go ahead, or to have given up and say, I can't do this anymore, I quit. I need help. I'm finally willing. So I know it's individual for everybody. I know there's no cookie cutter answers for all this, but we're always at a loss and we're always stuck in place. And I just didn't know if any of you guys had any insights, and I know time is limited, but that was kind of the general question. Yeah, anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me get off, but thank
Well,
you.
no,
And
it's,
thank you guys for coming.
no, absolutely. I thank you for your question and for being here. And I think it's great. I know, like Garrett, you just mentioned, it was really your mom that just said, "Hey, we're doing this. Let's go and meet with this doctor." And you know, you were open to that and went, and that made a difference for you. Mara, maybe you can elaborate a little bit. Mara, you mentioned that, you know, you were sort of hiding what was going on, and you kind of said in your when you were talking earlier that your mom happened to come by at a point where she just kind of got you at the right time, where you were just like, I think you used the word like you were just exhausted or sort
Yeah.
of done. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
But Adam, you know,
Yeah.
Mara's case is self-denial. She's aware. She knew she was depressed. Where Garrett had the delusions, had these different things, and just, you know, it wasn't something that consciously you can now decide on. So I don't know if I'm off base, but that's how I see the difference. You know, so it's what gave Garrett, besides his mother's 26 visits to the hospital, was it just fatigue? I give up, and finally I'm just going to follow what my family says because I trust them, or, you know, what is that thing? Because, you know, you talk about the hope, and we talk about this transition that one day in the future, but I just don't see it other than my son getting fatigued and finally saying, I can't live like this anymore. And he did have a suicide attempt. And so that's constantly there, that we don't want to push him, because any experience that we've had in the past with bringing him to a hospital has turned completely against us and made him distrust us and separate ourselves. So again, it's, do you act like a parent and treat him like a child? He's 31, by the way, and just say, we're going to do this, but knowing that he's just going to reject it? Or do you passively wait and wait for, you know, check his room to see if he's still breathing? I mean, you know, again, if there's any kind of insight that we could get from this, we would appreciate it. So again, I rambled on about this, but let me get off.
Sure.
But thank you.
You know what comes to me is the value. There's a lot of value in being around peers, and you can learn from peers. I have learned from peers. When I was at the UCLA hospital, and I was in the hospital for about 62 days, there are a couple of reasons I kind of changed the direction. One, that was just too long for me. It was just a very long, very long, very long hospitalization. I don't want to go back to that. Two, NAMI was there, and I would learn from peers. I think being around other people that had a mental health condition made me feel less stigma, less scared, and more informed. Also, I started focusing on things that I wanted to do, like going back to graduate school. On top of that, I was in my 30s. I'm a much different person than I was in my 20s. I'm a much different person than I was in my 30s. And now I'm a real different person now that I'm in my 40s. And in my 30s, I figured out, wait a second here. A lot of my peers are married, kids, careers, and I don't have anything pretty much going for me. I just keep going into this hospital. So by going to the life adjustment team and doing an intensive outpatient program, I was around other people that had either addiction or mental health, and I got specialized treatment with the life adjustment team, going there about 3 days a week. My mom was driving me each way, dropping me off, picking me up. And then I went to graduate school and I took a class in psychopharmacology, and I learned about how many people relapse when they get off their medications. So it was a continual process of staying what I call in the herd, staying around in the herd, staying around people that are looking out for me, staying away from triggers, staying away from isolation, staying with peers, staying with school, staying with family that love me. So if people ask me, Garrett, how did you accomplish graduate school being so sick? And I told them I was like a dog with a frisbee. I really wanted to do this. I went to a school that set me up for success named Antioch. It was very small. It was a private school. It was a great education. And I was like a dog with a frisbee. I bit onto that frisbee as hard as I could, and I wasn't letting anybody take that frisbee out of my mouth.
Well, thank you, Garrett. I think some key
I'm sorry, but can I just do a follow-up? Because why did you go to the hospital 26 times? And if you didn't go to the hospital 26 times, do you think that you'd still have gotten to the same result? Because it kind of comes across to me that because people are then subject to this hospital visits and get fed up with that, again, that becomes your self-change. So
I was hospitalized so many times because I had a misdiagnosis. I was hospitalized so many times because I wanted to stop my meds. I was in the hospital because I was either overly medicated or they were giving me the wrong meds. So it was a long process of figuring out the correct diagnosis and the correct medication. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate it. Appreciate your thoughts on that for sure. And I know, I think it's hard because there are no easy answers, and it's so individualized. And I think, something I think you all sort of touched on, all of our peer panelists, has just kind of got to that point where you reach that breaking point, whether it was just exhausted of dealing with how you were feeling, or just getting over time, getting more education, or seeing, like you said, Garrett, other people in your life kind of moving forward with their lives, and got to a point where you had the insight to say, there's something going on here. I think it's everyone has an individual journey with that, but I do appreciate all of your thoughts on that. We're pretty much at that time here. I know a couple quick things. Elizabeth put a link to a quick survey in the chat box, so if you haven't had a chance to fill that out, maybe just take a minute or two. It's really helpful for us to continue to improve what we're doing, and get that feedback is really valuable to all of us. And so would appreciate if everyone could just take a minute to do that. And maybe, I know I saw a couple other quick hands. I know if you do have to go, it's 8 o'clock. So if you do need to leave, but yeah, Dick, I saw your hand up. So maybe you have a quick question for us.
Thank you, Adam, for taking my, or noticing I had a question here. I have a question, but I don't know that we're gonna necessarily have enough time to go into it, but I would like to say that, Adam, you are doing an outstanding job with what you're doing in the community, thinking outside of the box and trying to establish support and mental health programs in a community where we have very, very little effective mental health programs. And I just want to congratulate you on the work that you're doing. And I hope that the community continues to support you in your activities. And you're a very valuable asset. And by the way, I'm a private LPS conservator. One of my questions was going to be asking the panelists if any of you have ever been on conservatorships, what experiences in a conservatorship have helped you establish better mental health. And I don't think we really have time to go into all that right now, but I couldn't leave the evening without Adam really congratulating you for the work that you're doing, and keep it up. And I'm glad that you're in our community and working with mental illness. So keep it up, and congratulations to Jeff and Mara and Garrett. And you guys are amazing, and keep your work up too.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Yes.
Okay. For Maria, and I forget your first name.
Mark.
Mark. Okay. I just can feel your frustration, like, or like, you know, just where you're at, like I can feel it. And it's frustrating that there's no like one answer for it. But like, I guess the only advice I can give is like to make sure to take care of yourselves too, because that's like, I mean, that's the only way you can really be there. Everyone says it, like the oxygen mask, but when it's someone you love, like I know with my mom with the stroke, it's like everyone would say, you need to take the time for yourself, but when you really love someone, it's hard to step away and do that. But like, it's everything. So I'm sorry, there's not like one answer to give, but that's the best advice I could give. So.
Thank you, Maura. I appreciate that, and well said, well said. And I know we're a few minutes over here, so we'll wrap it up. I appreciate everyone sticking around a few extra minutes here, but thank you again to all of our peer panelists, Garrett, Maura, Jeff, Brenda. Really appreciate your time and your willingness to just have the courage to share and be as transparent as you've been and just kind of speak honestly about your experience, and really valuable, really appreciate that. And for all of you that are here participating and attending, thank you for being here and taking the time and the questions. And I hope that this has been helpful, and hope some questions have been answered. And I am hoping that we will be doing this again, and maybe just a couple of months we'll do another one of these and have some other peer panelists, and appreciate all of you and our mental health community and all of the support that you provide each other and everything that NAMI does as well. So really thank you all for being here and being a part of this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Take
All right,
care.
thank you.